Morning, everyone. Welcome to this allowable ex parte. We'll ask Mr. Melchers, our attorney, to read the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we are here pursuant to a request for an allowable ex parte briefing. The requester is Blue Granite Water Company, and the topic is the state of the company. It's been posted for briefing today, May 29th, 2019, at 10 a.m. here in the commission room. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take appearances from everyone. Well, do we just need to go ahead and go to Mr. Nelson? Mr. Nelson, we'll just call on you to do your thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and good afternoon to everybody else that's here too. I'm Jeff Nelson. I'm the Chief Legal Officer for the Office of Regulatory Staff. I'm here today as a designee of the Executive Director of ORS at this allowable ex parte to be presented by Blue Granite Water Company and conducted in accordance with the provisions of Section 58-3-260C. As the ORS representative, it's my duty to certify the record of this proceeding to the Chief Clerk of the Public Service Commission, Ms. Jocelyn Boyd, within the next 72 hours and verify that this briefing was conducted in accordance with the statute. The requirements of 58-3-260C in part are that the allowable ex parte be confined to the subject matter which has been noticed. In this case, that issued notice topic is state of the company, which seems pretty broad, so there'll be a lot of room there for what we're going to discuss this morning. We ask that the presenters, commissioners, and staff please refrain from discussing any matters not related to this specific topic. Under 58-3-260C, participants, commissioners, and commission staff are prohibited from requesting or giving any, quote, commitment, predetermination, or prediction, unquote, regarding any action by any commissioner as to any ultimate or penultimate issue which either is before or is likely to come before the commission. In short, the presenters can't ask the commissioners for anything, and the commissioners should not give any opinion or pledge to the presenters. Please refrain, if you can at all, from referencing reports, articles, statutes, or documents that are not part of the presentation today so that we don't have to try and chase those down over the next 72 hours to get them turned in. Finally, everyone in attendance here today must read, sign, and return a form. You should have gotten a form. You should have also signed in on a sign-in sheet when you came in. Please make sure that you read that form, sign it, and turn it back in before you leave today, or we're going to have to try and track you down and get the form back from you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I'm Sam Wellborn for the company. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Robinson Gray, Stepp, and Lafitte. First, we appreciate your time this morning, and we hope that you find this allowable ex parte briefing to be informative and useful. As described in the notice, the purpose of this morning's briefing is to discuss the state of the company. The briefing will be presented by Catherine Heigl, Bryce Mendenhall, Travis Dupree, and Bob Hunter. Ms. Heigl is the president of Blue Granite Water Company. She previously served as chief operating officer of Elliott Davis, a regional accounting and business advisory firm headquartered in Greenville, South Carolina. She's also served as director of DHEC, the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. She served, before that, served in various roles with Duke Energy, including president of its South Carolina operations. Ms. Heigl joined Blue Granite Water Company in 2018. Mr. Mendenhall is Vice President of Operations for Blue Granite Water Company. He has been employed in the water and wastewater profession for over 26 years. Prior to his employment with the company, he worked for more than a decade as a county utilities director, and he joined Blue Granite Water Company in 2017. Mr. Dupree is Director of Project Management Engineering for the company. He's worked more than 20 years in manufacturing and public infrastructure systems, and most recently spent 13 years with the City of North Myrtle Beach in the Utilities and Public Works Department. In his current role at Blue Granite, he's responsible for development agreements, project engineering, and oversight for large capital projects, and he's a licensed PE in South Carolina. He joined Blue Granite in 2018. Finally, Mr. Hunter is Director of Financial Planning and Analysis for the company. He joined Blue Granite in 2013, and prior to that, he worked as an investment analyst. He is responsible for all rates, accounting, and finance functions for the company, and he oversees the company's purchasing and business development activities. Not on our panel this morning, but joining us here in the commission meeting room are Michael Carton, Director of External Affairs and Strategy for the company, as well as Reese Hannon, Communications and Community Relations Director. Our panelists, as Mr. Nelson mentioned, have been reminded to refrain from discussing any active proceedings before the commission and to speak clearly into their microphones so as to help out Ms. Wheat. We appreciate your time this morning to hear about the state of Blue Granite Water Company, and this time I'll turn things over to Ms. Heigl.
Thank you, Mr. Welborn. Ms. Heigl, welcome.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here, and the subject is broad, and that was intentional. We would like to share a lot of information with you today, and we welcome your questions at any point during the presentations and certainly at the end, and just look forward to a good conversation. I do have one quick update. Mr. Dupree's title is actually Vice President of Engineering and Project Management. He was recently promoted. All right. Oh, sorry. He is Vice President of Engineering and Project Management. Sure. So just as a quick overview, I will lead off with just an overview of where we are as an industry, which I won't spend a lot of time on. I know many of you all are very familiar with that. You've heard a lot at NARUC and other sources about that. And then I will give you a snapshot of the state of the company now about 16 months into my tenure as president. Then we'll move into operations, which Mr. Mendenhall will cover, capital projects, and the finance update. Okay, it's no surprise, I think, for anyone, for me to tell you that we have old infrastructure. Like the industry as a whole, water and wastewater infrastructure is much of it beyond its original intended useful lives. And so we, as an industry, are faced with a very substantial investment need across the country. And this is not just private, this is for municipal and government-owned as well. That leads into that second bullet of historic investments needed. You're going to hear today from Mr. Dupree about some of the projects that we have going on right now. You all do receive a regular report from us on our capital projects, and so he's going to kind of pull out a number of key projects from that report that we routinely provide to you and talk about that. But what I want to say is that as a whole, there's more need than money identified. Again, whether that's government funds or whether you're in the municipal world or whether it's the private world. And that leads into some other challenges for us that I'll talk about later. Increasing environmental compliance requirements. Emerging contaminants, you read a lot about that, PFOA, PFAS, other the list is hundreds and hundreds of new compounds and derivations of compounds that we're learning more about. We don't fully understand the health impacts of, but over time, what we are seeing is those environmental compliance requirements are going to increase. And as we learn more, as the science gets better and as the data gets better about the public health implications of these compounds, more will be required of utilities over time. We have some facilities on the wastewater side that are already moving to membrane treatment, and Mr. Mendenhall can talk more about that. But you may have seen headlines about things, drugs, residual drugs that are found in shellfish and oysters and other fish and things that people consume that come from just discharge of treated wastewater, and we're learning that some of these chemicals live or remain longer than we understand. And so we keep our eye on that horizon, and we want to make sure that we are understanding it. Aging workforce. We have a lot of, we actually experienced a number of retirements last year in South Carolina and in North Carolina as well. And so that's just something that we continue to see as an industry as a whole. And that is particularly acute when your pipeline of new workers is narrower. We have a great economy right now with almost full employment. So when you're experiencing retirements at the same time that your available, eligible workforce is fundamentally shrinking to you, that creates a special challenge. So we're having to become more creative as an industry about where we look for operators and growing that talent from within. Need for scale regionalization. Again, back to the historic investments and aging infrastructure. You're seeing pushes around the country for regionalization, folks to come together, pool their resources, both talent and monetary, to address some of these challenges. And certainly we are participating in some of that regionalization activity through our 208 plan compliance. And then lastly, increasing construction cost. So it's not enough just to talk about the historic investments, but it's almost a perfect storm. At the same time that you need to do a lot, you're also spending more to do it than we've had to spend in the past, because back to full employment, a robust economy, contractors are, that market is tight. They have more work than they can take on, which is great for them, but a challenge for us. And so we are having to make sure that we are very diligent in our bid processes, particularly for the larger projects. You have up there, I think, in front of you, a booklet that says strategic plan on the front. It's this document. And what you will find in there is our roadmap for who we want to be, what we need to focus on, and how we plan to get there. We developed collaboratively, we rolled this out in December of 2018, a vision for our company. That is not something that we previously had. And that vision is to be the preferred private water and wastewater utility for South Carolina customers and communities. We want to be the resource that people come to for their water and wastewater needs. And coupled with that is the mission. And we had a mission statement before, but it was missing some key components in the estimation of the team. And so the revised mission here is our work is really focused on improving the lives of the customers that we serve. And we do that by providing safe, reliable, and cost-effective water and wastewater services while also being a good steward of our environment. And that last part was very important to our team, to our staff. So we have some lofty strategic goals, and these are really more focus areas for us. And everything we do needs to move the needle in a positive direction in one or more of these four areas. We need to be better at collaboration and engagement, and that's not just with customers, that's with all stakeholders, that's with our employees, with our regulators. Excellence in service, it sounds easy to say, it's hard to do, but it's looking for what is that best practice out there in everything that we do. Lifting our heads up, looking around, and not being satisfied with the status quo. Strong financial performance. We need to be focused on earning our allowed return. And that is important so that we can maintain access to capital, because back to the prior slide, with the historic investments that we need to make and with the public health impacts of the product that we provide, we have to be able to do the projects, make the investments needed to be that quality service provider that you expect of us and that we expect of ourselves. And then lastly, world-class talent. You almost need to start with that. It's all about people. Every organization's success is determined by the quality, the talent, and the leadership of the people involved. And so you'll see that we have a real strong focus on that. And I mentioned the comment about operators and how are we going to train that next generation of operators and leaders for our company. And those are things that we're very keenly working on. So high level, over the last 16 months, we've had a lot of new talent come in to the company. I'm very excited about that. We did not previously have an on-staff professional engineer, and we do now, one with great experience and 2 degrees from that flagship University of South Carolina. Mr. Dupree has both a civil and a mechanical engineering degrees. So we're very pleased to have that expertise. We have a CPA on staff for the first time in our financial organization working for Mr. Hunter. We have just hired a woman to work for us from Greenville Water to lead our purchasing procurement efforts, and Mr. Hunter will talk more about that later. We have a community relations coordinator. Mr. Hannon came to us from Furman University, and we're very pleased to have him. And I wouldn't stop at just the in-house talent. That's certainly been a primary focus, but it takes a team, and it's a bigger bench than just your employees. We rely upon contractors and outside engineers every day to help us ensure that we are providing safe, reliable water and wastewater service. And so we really did a very thorough look at the talent that we had in those outside resources and made some adjustments, and also negotiated some rates in a favorable direction for the company. So a lot of good work done on the talent front, because you've got to have the right players to make the types of monumental changes and transformation that we're trying to affect. New processes, you're going to hear more detail from the rest of the presenters about some of the things that we're doing at a high level. We're overhauling our purchasing process. We've implemented standard operating procedures for wellhouse operations and wastewater treatment plant operations. We've are in the process now of refining an incident command structure that we utilized last fall. For better or worse, I have a fair bit of emergency response experience from my time at DHEC with natural disasters, and one of the things that we have improved greatly upon over the last year is our emergency response capabilities and standing up an incident command structure to be able to deal with events, not just natural disasters, but also events, whether it's water supply, which we're currently addressing in York County, or other types of events like that. So that's an improved process. Our contracting, improved our contracting processes and standard bids. And I put in the category of process how we communicate with customers. It's both a technology component, but it's also a process. So we have over here a display that you see laid out on the table, and then some picture boards here. We have been holding now every 6 months for really the last 16 months. So we've had 3 total workshops for our customers in our throughout the state in our service areas, and they are set up like a transmission workshop. So rather than a town hall where people come in and they have to wait their turn to speak, and they have to listen to other people's issues that they really don't necessarily have an interest in, and they may not have time to stay all evening to be heard by us. What we've done is we've set up these booths or tables, and we have them manned, and we have a table on billing and rates and customer service, and a table on technology, And so we brought just the one table kind of set up for you to see here on technology so that we are improving our communication with customers. This particular setup is to help our customers understand changes that we will be making, have not yet made, to move to advanced metering infrastructure. And this is a phased approach that we are taking, but we want our customers to understand why we're doing it, what it looks like, what it means for them, and they have the ability to talk one-on-one with our operators and engineers to learn more about it. We also are promoting our new online My Utility Connect app, which is a way for customers to pay their bills, see their usage on a monthly basis. Ultimately, with AMI, they would be able to see it more real time. And also to opt in for push notifications for when there are boil water advisories or other types of alerts that we would want to send out. They can get them via email or text, however they should elect. So these are some new things, but we use that process of engaging with our customers in person every 6 months or so to be able to do that. There are still a lot of customers who they're not going to read the bill inserts. Or if they read it, they don't understand it, they have questions, so we're giving them an opportunity to come interact with us directly. I talked about new technology briefly. There's a lot of new systems, most of which are kind of behind the scene for customers, new financial planning software that Mr. Hunter's been working to help implement. The My Utility Connect program, which is live and working, and then we are working with Oracle now on a new purchasing platform, which will streamline that process even further. So I'll let Mr. Mendenhall talk more about the asset management technology that we're now utilizing. And then lastly, the brand. So a brand is more than a name and a logo, but because to me, the brand is the people. Is the culture of the company. And while we worked very, very hard last year to develop a new vision and mission and talk about what are our strategic goals and what are the initiatives and things that we're going to do to move that forward, and our core values, and how are we going to do it? How do we behave? What are our expectations of one another? At the end of the day, what we really needed was an external, outward manifestation of that internal culture change. We needed a new name. We needed a new logo. And that was probably one of the greatest morale lifts for our employees. We had, candidly, a lot of employees, mostly here in the Midlands, who didn't want to wear their work shirt to the grocery store. We had one employee give a small, modest campaign donation to a legislator who was a family member, and it was torn up and said, I really appreciate the sentiment, but I can't have that company on my register. And so think about that impact on employees. That's hard. We really needed not only to internally lift people up, give them something to aspire to, and hold people accountable. It's not just fluff. There's real expectations behind all this. And we have a very robust dashboard that is tracking what we're doing and how we're doing. We needed that outside symbol, and it has made such a big difference. And employees are proud to work for Blue Granite Water Company. And that's probably, if you ask me what where my pride comes from of all the things that we've done over the last year, I will tell you it's the fact that employees are proud to work for this company again. And that's the foundation for everything else we have to do, because it's heavy lifting. There is a lot that has to be done, a lot that we're balancing, and not least of which, and I should have put it on that first slide, is impact on rates and affordability for customers. And so we're doing a lot. We're going to be stressing rates, and and we know it, and we are trying to be as prudent as we can to make sure that we meet that mission, maintain the affordability of rates, but at the end of the day are providing that reliable service that our customers expect. So I am now going to, oops, I got one more slide. I've already talked about most of these things. I do want to take just a second on the social media and customer communications, the continuing challenges and opportunities. I listed it as both. Social media is a great way for people to stay connected to the company, to one another, to know what's going on. It is a very fast means of communication and getting messages out. The challenge is that it is also a very fast means for distributing and disseminating misinformation. And so these are things that we work with we try to get out ahead of things where we can. But just to give you one example, tangible example, we several months ago had a boil water advisory. We did the alert, still goes out through voice reach. Some people, I don't think we had My Utility Connect live at that point. And someone in the neighborhood had posted on Facebook that the boil water advisory had been lifted, and people started, and they, notwithstanding that they had not heard from us that it had been lifted, people were starting to use the water. Fortunately, some people were calling us into our customer service center to ask, and we were able to explain, but there are some folks who won't do that. They'll see a Facebook post and they'll act on that. And so that's a challenge because that's obviously a public health risk. So what that means is it's incumbent upon us to be quick to the punch. We have to be making sure that we are getting our messages out, and not only getting them out, but sustaining some level of messaging. And historically, we've sent a message out, and then we've just waited for the event to pass, then we issue the release. Well, if there's 2 days in between, that's light years that's a lot of time for a lot of folks. And so we are going to have to do a better job of that more consistent messaging. 208 water quality plans. We have, as you all know, the I-20 plant was taken pursuant to the Midlands Council of Governments 208 water quality plan. The Friarsgate plant was recently interconnected pursuant to that same plan, and we are continuing that work. I actually have a meeting on Friday with REWA in Greenville to talk about a sizable expansion that they are looking to do, which would actually allow us to interconnect our Canterbury plant, and that's very collaborative. All of our interconnection discussions have been very positive, very fruitful, very collaborative, save for the town of Lexington discussions. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to make progress there. But we are serious about adhering to the terms of our permit. We are serious about the public health implications of having aging plants that continue on expired permits that are not connected. We cannot do what perhaps the company did in the past, which is sit back and just wait for these issues to be resolved so that progress can be made. And what happens is then eventually somebody sues somebody. We are taking a very proactive approach to these issues and planning. It's the best thing for our customers. It's the right thing by our mission, where we talk about trying to be good stewards of the environment. But when you have, in the case of our Watergate plant, a plant that was built in 1973 that's been on an expired permit for several years now without any action on that permit renewal application, and a request that is now almost a year old, formal request with the town to interconnect that facility. At a certain point, just waiting isn't an option, and so those are the challenges. It's also an opportunity for us, but I did want to make sure that I took a moment to talk about that, because that has certainly been something that you all have been called to approve interconnection agreements for us, which we greatly appreciate.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Bryce Mendenhall, Blue Granite Water Company. Appreciate your time this morning. Wanted to talk with you a little bit about operations, but some technology pieces that we're following and that are enhancing our operations as much as anything. What we have is an OMS, it's an operations management system. It's called Lucity, rolled out back in 2018 in October. So if you're familiar with GIS, Geographic Information Systems, and then it's we pour that together with a computer maintenance management system. We put both of those together. Ultimately, what we have is staff members that have basically an iPad, and that drives their day. Basically, we do work orders from it, we do a multitude of things, but it integrates a lot of systems. And what we're integrating is GIS, the mapping component of it, customer care and billing, our asset registry, which is where we're looking at total assets across the company, linear and above ground, purchase order, timekeeping. We look at our HSE components, our health, safety, and environment. They get work orders on them, and they do preventative maintenance on it. And we track that all along. So the benefits of coupling all of those pieces that I just gave you, the benefits we get from that and that we pass on to our customers as well is we've got improved ability to access the information, and we can see what our assets are. We can see what the ages of our assets are. We can see how they're performing in the field for us. Moving forward, customer service. If our staff is in the field, it's not the fact of a phone call anymore or coming back to the office to see what work orders we may have. It's real time. When it's pushed out through our customer service reps, it's appearing on their iPads. Shortens their return time, shortens their response time, and it gives us quicker service to our customers on end use of the line. Big piece of it is preventative maintenance. As we have issues with pumps or controls, we're monitoring that. We're taking record of it. If we have repetitive issues with a facility that we have, we're seeing that trend. And that becomes a point of repair for us or a point of attention for us. We're actually using this tool to go through and assess the condition of wastewater treatment plants, well houses, pumps. Any asset that we have, we go through and we make a condition assessment of it. Helps drive what capital expenditures we may have so that it's prudent spending for the replacements that we may need. Service levels and risk comes back to our staff tracking main breaks, main repairs. If we have a piece of the system that is giving us repetitive issues, we've got repetitive responses to, we can track that, we can trend it. Is there a pressure issue? Is there a pipe issue? Is this a replacement piece? Is it not just replacing a service, but us looking to do a whole-scale pipe replacement? So we're making more educated decisions based on this tool that we have. And that's the last bullet that it shows, better data to support decision-making, which increases our ability to project capital projects that have the most benefit and maintain our systems as well as we possibly can. So this is one of our fine operators in South Carolina, and I know it's hard to see, but this is a work order that is generated from our Lucity program that is pushed out by CSRs, our customer service reps rather. So basically, this is what would appear on their screen. And it gives them general knowledge of what the issue or the event is that we need to address. In this case, I can no longer see that far, so I apologize. But this referred to a main break. And so this is what we get from it. That's better. So the one thing that I would add to is we're adding a lot more information to these events than we ever did before. So in this case, a contractor hit a water main. The operator tells us, and actually the operator that's in the picture was the one that filled out and responded to this incident. He gives us a definition, he or she gives us a definition of what they did when they arrived on scene, what they evaluated, valves they turned off. So it's keyed up in the notes for the incident comments that you'll see right in the middle of the page. The other piece of this is it goes through and it walks the operator through. Do we need a boil water advisory? Do we need a voice reach? But one of the other key pieces that I'm going to hit on in just a minute, but it starts to tell a story, is that we look to see what water loss we have. We're trying to account for non-revenue water, but we're looking to see the impact that that has overall on our losses. So our folks in the field are making that estimate. It is an estimate because there's a science that goes to it, and it is purely an estimate, but it's based on experience. But we are trying to track that and get a hold of it and manage it better than we have done in the past. Here's an additional service order that you'll see, and this is just a common work order. If you look in the middle, the second line there, it refers to, this is a read meter for a start-stop. But this is the information that our folks are getting real time. So it helps us with tracking, it helps us with accuracy as well as we go through, because we're writing down, we have a meter number that's populated on it. We have a subdivision that it's in. There's multitudes of information that if there was any water loss, once again, you see we're looking for estimated water loss if there's any issue that is found at that meter when they go perform this. And so in the notes, it tells the operator, the customer service rep gives notes. This is exactly what they need to do. They need to take final read and leave on. If they follow the directions, and they do, instead of cutting it off and having to make a return trip, we're being more efficient at our jobs because in this case where we took a final read and left on, other events, before we had technology and there's miscommunication, as a start-stop read, we may have cut that meter off and there would have been a return trip there. So this is where I think it helps, and it is proving to help efficiencies of our operators in the field and the service that we deliver. Non-revenue water, a very popular term. It's called water loss now. Can be referred to in different means, different ratios, and different people call it different things. What it boils down to is water that is pumped or produced or purchased that is not sold and is otherwise unaccounted for. In this case, we've recently adopted and addressing our non-revenue water. How do we do it? That's the key piece, is how do we do it? We're using new technology. It's been around overseas for a while, but it's called helium leak testing, and it's basically a sniffer test. We inject helium gas into the water lines, perfectly safe. It's a perfectly accepted practice. We let it migrate through the system 24 to 36 hours. Then we come back out, or our contractors do come back out with a device that actually smells for the helium. And when we get the highest helium reading, that's generally pinpoints a leak. It's non-invasive. It gives us good results, and we're going to move forward with more studies. Not a lot of contractors are performing this technology, so you kind of have to get in line with their availability. But it has proven to be very effective. Otherwise, we're using ultrasonic testing. Basically, that's a listening device. That gets real challenging because basically the only way you can do a true listen is late night hours, early morning hours, because if you ever had one of those headphones on and let a car or a Harley Davidson or something go by, you don't hear anything else for the rest of the leak test. So it makes it kind of challenging at the times you go through. Meter replacement program. Meters are just like anything else. The more water that goes through them, their accuracy goes down. They wear out. Not a lot of moving parts in them, but nonetheless, they do wear out. I think that's a key piece, and in my years of experience, meters are your biggest culprit as far as non-revenue water. Older systems with leaks and lines, I understand that, and there's allowable leakage in certain lines, but I think meters and slowing down what they're representing as water goes through them is one of the biggest culprits. And I think that's a key piece, is getting meters on a rotating replacement program. Internal water audits by system. So one thing we have done within the company, obviously, is we go through and we look to see how our systems are performing. There's a multitude of different ways to do that, but we're looking at total water supplied, total water pumped, and then what are we recovering, what is actually being sold. One key piece of that goes back again to meters. Your source water meter. How often are you testing it? What is the age of it? What is the loss in it? Is it still operating at 98 to 99% accuracy? If it's not, then slowly we start taking off that percentage of what is recognized. The higher the flow, obviously the simple math is the higher the non-revenue water that comes through. Meter accuracy. Still, you notice a tone. Meters are a big piece to me. Small meters, which are to a degree our bread and butter, because that's the most predominant meter that we have, what we're going to do is put a policy in place or enact a policy to test 1% of active meters in the water systems. 1% does not sound like a lot, but when you base it on the overall customer connections that we have, that's a pretty good number. And it gives us an idea of performance. Obviously, we're not going to go look at the shiny new meter that just been placed in. We're going to look for those that have higher consumption or very high consumption on a rotating basis, and that's what we're going to base the test on. That's going to drive a meter replacement program. Large meters, greater than 1 inch. The plan is to test at least every 2 years, depending on consumption. And one of the big pieces there is consumption. And then as we build a pattern of how the meter is performing based with its age, it may speed up or slow down the testing that is required. Large diameter meters have the potential for a greater loss. They're not as accurate as a small meter depending on the application that they're in. That's another key piece of meter accuracy as well that's not depicted here. But do we have the right meter, large diameter meter, do we have the right meter in the right application? Could it be a turbine? Could it be a compound? That's one thing that we will be evaluating as well as we look at these meters. Total water supplied, I just spoke about that, a little out of order, but that's looking at source water meters to make sure that we are representing the total flow coming through. Billed and unbilled consumption. So we use water for a multitude of reasons, also in our operations. When you look at main flushing for water quality, main breaks that we can't plan for with a large loss, tank overflows that may be due to failing altitude control valves or transducers, and then filter backwash at our wastewater treatment plants. There's a multitude of places that we use water, but are we using it effectively and are we doing it efficiently? And that's one thing that we are going to be reviewing to make sure. Apparent loss management, zero consumption and vacant status reports. We are already reviewing these. And zero consumption, if we read a meter and we get a report back and it says there's zero consumption and it's an occupied dwelling, there's an issue. We need to know that and we need to address it. And that's when, going back to the work orders that you saw posted, that's when we send those out. We send the work order out to verify it. It can indicate a stop meter. It can indicate somebody may have bypassed the meter. Multitude of different things. Vacant status reports, same thing. If we're not reading a meter, we're comparing what we're seeing on the ground to where we have readings to what we're billing. So it's just a double check. It's a matter of checks and balances to make sure that we're accounting for every usage that's going on and that we're billing those accordingly that are using water from Blue Granite. Last is our key performance indicators, our KPIs. I know this is hard to see, but it tells a story. So in your packets, you will see that I've given data from 17, 18, and then 19. It talks about our targets. It talks about our actual for 2019, and it gives a multitude of different pieces of information. A couple that I'd love to draw your attention to, though, is to look at percentage of water system days in compliance. This goes back to Ms. Heigl's discussion of bringing talent in, world-class talent. We have staff now that take pride in the job they do and the commitment they have to those that they serve. And what you see represented on the first line is in 17, 95.9% to 18, 98.4%. But I get a big smile on my face when I see January, February, March, 100% across the board. That's dedication from this world-class talent that we're bringing in. You look at the next place, field activities. 2017, 85.4% complete on time. If you look at January, February, and March, we're exceeding 98%. Huge adjustment. And that is a true benefit to our customers. That is the commitment that these staff members are putting in every day. If you go through, and then I'll point to a couple other things because I don't want to jinx myself, but I want you to look too at OSHA, lost time frequency, and other injuries. Not only are we performing better for our customers, we're doing it in a safe manner. And that's a credit to our own in-house talent with our health and safety manager who works with these staff members day in and day out and promotes this safe environment. And the last one that I want you to look at too is finally is percent of wastewater system days in compliance. 95.9% in 17, and if you look across the board at 99, 99, and 99 for calendar year 2019. That's what makes me proud of the staff, and that goes back to the commitment that Ms. Heigl spoke about from our employees. Commissioners, thank you for your time.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, it's been an informative presentation so far. We want to thank you for coming. With some of these new technologies that you've talked about, it's interesting that they have a lot of potential. But, for example, you mentioned using helium to find leaks in the line. My understanding is that there's been a shortage of helium during the past year, and I'm just wondering if you factored that into your planning decisions. I believe the cost of helium's gone up about 135% year to year, and Qatar is one of the countries where it's mined, and it's currently been embargoed by Saudi Arabia, so that's about 30% of the market that has been taken out. So are you committing to a technology that's sustainable going forward if you use that?
What I can tell you is over the past 2 years, the shortage has not affected us. The shortage, Commissioner, is with contractors that actually do the work. The prices for the helium testing have stayed pretty static over the course of the past 2 years. In 2 more years, they may be a better technology, in all honesty, that may outdo helium. But currently, now the problem I'm having is actually getting the contractors in because they're so limited. But I have not had any experience with any issues with the shortage, no, sir.
So we've done the helium testing in systems in North Carolina to great effect in terms of the results. One of the challenges that we have, there aren't very many contractors who do it, and maybe it's the supply of the underlying commodity that they need, because we would like to do this testing in our River Hills area currently, and we are having an availability issue. There's also the issue that the contractors that do the testing want to be the ones that do the repair work or whatever point repairs or other work that's identified. So there are a number of challenges. So as you saw, it's kind of, there's no silver bullet. We are seeing some challenges with that particular technology, but it has shown great promise to us.
Well, it's good to know that you're using independent contractors so that your company is not necessarily investing in that technology. You're just contracting. That's correct. And you have the ability to do it in a cost-effective way, so that if the prices do go up, you're not going to have to commit to some kind of long-term deal.
That's correct. There are no long-term deals. It's been a system by system.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to talk with you about our project management and engineering. Sorry. So, as Ms. Heigl referred to, we have some unique challenges, especially with projects when it comes to cost and trying to find contractors. In the past, we have been more in a reactive mode as a company. That has since changed. We are more proactive now. And with that being reactive, we've been able to take care of some of the outstanding projects, including Friars Gate wastewater treatment plant connection, the Shandon connection to Carrollton Place, and the Stonegate water connection. So this shows that we're basically moving forward and stepping up to the plate to get things done quickly and efficiently and in the best interest of the customers. One of the things that helps us pull out of this reactive mode and into a more proactive mode goes back to the OMS system and the GIS that we are currently working on and will be working on for some time. Just like a majority of the municipalities or utilities out there, they have a very difficult time with GIS and OMS. They, for the most part, don't do it. I have been on the other end of the spectrum, or I shouldn't say spectrum, but on the other end working for a municipality. So I know firsthand how difficult that can be. But once you move down that road and you see the benefit, it definitely will help you. And one of the areas that helps you in, for instance, Mr. Menhall talked about locating line breaks, and if you see reoccurring issues on certain lines, or you see reoccurring issues on certain lift stations, wells, anything of that nature, that's something that I can use, and we can use as a company to plan for the future. Which, if you can plan for the future, once again, you go back to being efficient and getting things done that actually benefits the customer once again. Some of the more current projects that we are focused on are wastewater collection systems, which includes Fairwood, Pocalla, Oakland, and the Beaufort system known as Palmetto Estates. We are in the middle of performing analysis for those four, and actually we are wrapping up the analysis for the Beaufort system. So in the next few weeks, we will have that analysis completed, and then once we do that, we will move forward with doing whether it might be lining of the sewer system or full all-out pipe replacement. We have we have hired a terrific consultant that understands our systems and is assisting us on the GIS end as far as getting the data inputted. So they're helping us with analyzing this data because they're the most familiar. So once again, that's being efficient, and it's a cost savings, so we're not having to deal with multiple consultants because you have one consultant that's familiar with everything. They're not having to go back and look at different systems, even though because they've already looked at it before. So some of the things that, we try to focus on when it comes to these projects, it might be the small things, looking at site layout. I've seen some lift stations, for instance, in my days where they've maybe not located that lift station in a safe location. And if you look at it again, you can say, you know what, I could pull it out of what could potentially be a flooded lift station. Also plan for the future. So if there's ever any additional connections that need to be made or there's growth in the system, you want to be able to think about that and lay those out. Same thing with piping layout, so it's the small details that we try to focus on. One of the things with the planning that helps with the project scoping, the upfront scoping, and with that scoping, you're able to better determine what are your construction costs going to be. what is your schedule going to be? When we were talking about the contractors, how difficult things are, if we can take and plan further out for these projects, then we can actually bid these projects out in a much more efficient fashion that allows these contractors to put it in their pipeline instead of having to be so rushed and get it out to contractors, where the contractors are saying, well, if you want it done now, you're going to pay a premium for that. Well, we've got to get rid of that mindset. And which we have not paid a premium. That's the benefit to the one thing that I've been able to focus on is make sure that in the upcoming years, we don't go down that road. With that being said, we are moving forward. We're making things happen, and it's been in a positive manner. Ms. Heigl, Mr. Mendenhall, even Mr. Hunter, we've all worked together to try to improve these projects and to do them as efficiently, as economically as possible. I have listed a number of projects here on these slides. This is the water system projects that we're working on. The next two slides are the current sewer system projects we're working on. And I would say on a weekly basis almost, we are adding to this list. So we're moving quickly to get things done. And we're also closing these projects out as fast as we can. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
I'll just add on to Travis's summary, and you see a lot of things here, but I think it's a general theme in terms of capital projects. We're focused on solving legacy problems and preventing future ones. It's bottom line. So you'll see in the last year, there are some issues that this commission has heard about for many, many years at 40 Love Point, Stonegate, water quality, certainly Friars Gate, collection system and the treatment plant. And 40 Love Point project is done. To date, we have not received any complaints, and so those solutions appear to be working. Stonegate interconnection is a water interconnection that was made with the City of Columbia, and that went live in April, and so the discolored water complaints have ceased. Friars Gate interconnection has been made, and that certainly, of course, was the subject of a lot of media coverage for many years prior to 2016, but particularly after July 4th, 2016. And so we are focused on solving problems, looking at things differently, and not accepting, well, that's just the way it is. New views, new perspectives, and not giving up. And so I think that's what our customers expect of us. It's what I expect of my service providers, and so we are delivering on that. And Travis is doing an outstanding job of bringing these projects through the pipeline in an efficient and effective manner.
Commissioner Belzer.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate all this information you're giving us. Just looking at the list of the capital projects, when the company starts looking at the possibility of interconnecting either water or sewer, do y'all ever talk to other utilities or ORS or DHEC or any other entities that may have had issues or dealings with other utilities that have interconnected with third-party providers to see issues that might have arisen with those utilities before you make a decision?
Well, to be fair, in these cases, Stonegate was a DHEC consent order that required us to do the interconnection with the City of Columbia. So we didn't really have the discretion in that. What we try to do is, yes, we do our due diligence. Oftentimes, we don't have a lot of options.
I understand.
Yeah, so it's not, with Friarsgate being the exception, the wastewater treatment facility, we had the option of Richland County or the option of the city of Columbia. The city was closer, and Richland County ultimately did not put in, we talked with both, Richland County did not put in an offer.
Is there usually it may not be a DHEC consent order, but I don't know, it could either be cost of replacing a plant that may require, or a well that may require interconnection, or what other reasons might require interconnection?
It's ultimately always going to be quality of service and total cost to the customer over the long term, not just a short term. So I'll give you one example right now that we're looking at. It's not a DHEC requirement, but we are looking at whether an interconnection makes sense and then over what time horizon. And that's our Roosevelt Garden system, which is wastewater treatment in Orangeburg County. And so that's one that we have to decide. Do we build a new plant? Because it's the end of life. So we've got a decision to make. We've got compliance challenges. And back to, we're not going to wait for something to break. We know enough to know something needs to be done in the near term. So our options are build a new plant or seek an interconnection. And so right now, parallel path, we're looking at both. And then over what time horizon? And then how long would that take? And then what do we do in the interim to ensure compliance? So, but does that answer your question?
It does. It just, I think from having been in this area as long as you've been, I think we've kind of had parallel time in the industry. It comes back down to the expense, and is it going to be the expense of for the consumer of the increase in the bill to pay the private utility, or if there's going to be a dramatic increase in the bill with a third-party provider? Right. And so I was just kind of curious as to what information the company might seek before making a decision on whether to go forward in-house and either build or repair or seek the interconnection. So
a lot goes into it. It's, we can't look at it in a vacuum. If we were looking at it in a vacuum, from the company's perspective, we'd build a new plant, right? Because that's
right, rate of return.
But we can't look at it that way, right? We have to look at what are the environmental requirements. That particular facility does not have a 208 requirement, but might it in the future? You don't want to build a stranded asset. Regionalization is certainly where we are headed. And by the way, in the spirit of regionalization, which I strongly believe in, because scale matters, we want to be a player in that. We believe that private utilities have the capital that a lot of municipalities and county governments struggle to come up with to be the regional provider. We are not that currently, but that's where we are looking to grow. So we look at the environmental implications and what are today's standards, what might the future hold, what is the growth in that area? Is there growth anticipated that would tip the scale in the favor of one direction or another? There are some, we have a system in Georgetown, it's a collection system only, where we approach the county, they do all the treatment about whether it is so far away from everything else that we have, whether that made sense for the county to own. And their response to us was if we paid them a certain amount of money, they would take it. Well, unfortunately, that's not in our customers' best interest at this time. Those are the types of conversations we are really looking at. We're trying to be holistic in the analysis, but make no mistake that the question overarching these decisions is what's in the customer's best interest in maintaining affordable rates over the long term.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, appreciate your time and listening to our presentation. So I'm going to go over initially here some of the finance, what I consider core objectives. The ultimate goals are making sure that we're having the capital to invest in the aging infrastructure, as Ms. Heigl mentioned, as well as maintaining the financial performance and health of the company, and ultimately being conscious and aware and making sure that we're managing any rate impact to our customers. Just going down the list, the first one's invest capital prudently. So that's meaning, we're making sure that we're planning out and prioritizing our capital spend, making sure that we're investing that capital prudently. Reduce operating expenses. This is very, very important as a key component since, again, rates are really the impact of the customers dollar for dollar when we're looking at operating expenses. So we want to make sure that we're being thoughtful and measured in how we manage our operating expenses to make sure that where we can, we're being efficient, and also to make sure that we're reducing operating expenses and looking for opportunities to save money whenever we can. Mitigate risks. This could refer to a few things. A couple that come to mind are standard contracts. So as Ms. Heigl mentioned, we're looking to make sure all of our vendors have standard contracts and terms, that they're following the codes and policies and standards that we expect of our vendors working on our systems. As well as asset management, making sure that we're, again, planning out, mitigating any risk, making sure we're prioritizing our projects to address the most critical infrastructure to make sure we avoid any higher operating expenses down the road. Recover costs timely. This is an item that I'll touch more on in a couple slides, but this is critical to the financial performance of the company. Obviously, the rate of return and what we have is impacted greatly by how quickly we can recover our cost. And then finally, maintaining access to low-cost capital. Again, this is critical to addressing the aging infrastructure problem. We want to make sure that we have the capital and that we're able to invest in South Carolina, since we're competing with everyone else just within our company and within the industry across the states, to really have that capital to invest in our assets. And again, I'll touch on that a little bit more in detail in a couple slides. So one of the new initiatives that we've really been focusing on over the last about year, and this really goes to cost management. So this is trying to address that, reducing operating expenses and making sure that we're really looking at areas where we can save and looking at new ways to manage this. And so doing this, we've set up a centralized purchasing or procurement function within Blue Granite Water. And this goes back to bringing in world-class talent. So we've currently have a purchasing coordinator that's in South Carolina over Blue Granite Water. Former operator that has transitioned. We've developed the talent within and now promoted her to the purchasing coordinator role. And then, as well as Ms. Heigl mentioned, we've brought over and have a purchasing manager coming on board in a couple weeks from now. And she's coming over. Her name is Valerie from Greenville Water, and she has over 3 years of experience there in the purchasing manager role. So direct experience in purchasing, inventory, and it's going to bring a wealth of knowledge to us and be able to help us really become a sophisticated inventory and purchasing function. So when we're looking at doing this, we're looking at purchasing improvements. And the reason we're doing this is for a couple of reasons. It's really to identify savings opportunities and improve controls. And when I say identify savings opportunities, we're looking at things like leveraging our buying power, fixed statewide contracts. And this comes down to having one central function that has a role to really be looking across the state, looking at all the vendors we use, looking at what we're spending in one area versus another area, and really analyze and find areas that we could save or there may be efficiencies that we're gaining on. And one example I can share is in the past year is just lawn mowing and landscaping. Prior, we had numerous vendors doing similar work across the state. We were able to look at that at a holistic level, bring it onto one now statewide contract where we have one vendor that's responsible for that across the state, and we've already realized savings from that. As well as leveraging buying power, again, being able to really look across the vendors and use that power to negotiate better prices and reduce operating expenses where we can to save money for our customers. And that really goes to another one of our key goals, our key goals is really that healthy financial performance. That's a key component of that is really looking for ways to reduce operating expense. The next item I have on here is the inventory management future state. And so we have inventory, but our goal is really to establish a sophisticated inventory practice, And this is an item that bringing on the purchasing manager is really going to be a critical component of doing that and drive this effort. And this is going towards our goal of having that excellence in operations. We want to make sure that we're really being efficient and we're managing our assets to the best of our abilities and really understand. And so two of the reasons, the main reasons I think of when I think of establishing this practice, what we're trying to do here is really better understand what we have and then better utilize what we have. So in better understand what we have, we want to make sure that through this inventory function that we have a complete and accurate database across the whole state and company of exactly what we have and where we have it. We want to make sure that this information is readily and easily available, not only for anyone out in the field, but also for us to make decisions at the corporate level as to how we can manage our business in areas that we can better manage. And just an example is determining optimal quantities. Again, with having a function and a person responsible and looking really at this data, you can start to analyze and figure out, do I need more here or less here? Just what is the optimal quantity? And that allows us to better utilize what we have, making sure that if we have certain assets in different parts of the states, that we're communicating, that we're collaborating with each other to make sure that we're really utilizing that and utilizing this database to realize those cross-area efficiencies. This will help us to eliminate unnecessary purchases and, again, go towards that goal of reducing operating expenses, becoming a more efficient operation, increasing that operational excellence, and ultimately increasing that financial health. And this new function is really exciting to me, again, because I think it hits on a lot of our strategic goals, as Ms. Heigl mentioned earlier. It also hits the collaboration piece. This is really critical. It's the finance team, the operations team, the procurement team, all working hand in hand to really make business decisions, utilize what we have, manage what we have, and then ultimately manage that rate impact to customers. The last slide I have here is impact of regulatory recovery lag. So again, when it comes to financial performance, really the biggest hit is what we have is when we have regulatory lag. So we file a rate case, it's based on historical test year, some pro forma adjustments, and then there's that gap in time for any changes between that time period and when the next rate case occurs and rates become in effect. So there's that period of time where we have lag from changing expenses, additional capital, any changes that would happen in that period. And so the regulatory lag really has a material impact on financial health. And so the first section here, expense and capital recovery lag accounts for 500 to 1,300 basis point gap from our allowed 10.5 ROE. And really looking at the past 2 years, you break it into expense and capital lag. Those are two high level, the big drivers. And really expense lag is the key. In the last 2 years, it's averaged about 739 basis points, so say 7 or 8%. Obviously, it grows over time. If you have certain expenses, then it's on the books for a longer period. That lag grows. Some of the main drivers within there, as I mentioned on the slide here, are property taxes, maintenance expenses, chemicals, salaries, anything that changes in that operation and maintenance expense that we're not recovering from the prior rate case. Capital lag in that same period is averaging about 135 basis points, so smaller, but definitely still material. I mean, it's still 135 basis points. And that goes to the next point here, which is infrastructure requires significant capital investments, and this has been mentioned already multiple times throughout this presentation, is we need to make sure that we have access to that capital. And our current plan is about almost $60 million over the next 5 years that's needed to address our aging infrastructure here in South Carolina for Blue Granite. And really, financial performance is the critical component in order for us to maintain access to that capital. So as we mentioned, the infrastructure problem is not just in South Carolina, it's across states, and we obviously, our corporation, our company operates across the states and in multiple business units. And so we need to make sure that our financial performance as Blue Granite Water is competitive within that to make sure that we have access to that capital so we can invest the money needed in South Carolina. And so how do we fix that? Where do we go from here? It's really, we need to look at, adopting new rate-making mechanisms, utilizing existing ones that are in other areas, and how can we take advantage of that to really improve that financial performance? And so just a few those best practices that we're really highlighting, really focusing on are one, future test year. That's definitely the one that's the most proactive. It addresses, again, looking at what we talked about earlier, the expense lag, getting that future look on that expense and really recovering that proactively would definitely help to reduce that and increase the rate case window. The next would be a banded ROE or a 5-year rate plan. So again, it's not as proactive. It's reactive if you have a certain threshold on the top end and the low end of your return where you can be earning, and if you fall outside of it, then you would update rates each calendar year to address that. It's a little bit more reactive in the sense that it's after the fact. If you were below that ROE, you would come in and update your rates instead of, whereas the future test year kind of is more future looking in that sense. But this would still be important in the sense that it's setting pretty much more known rates. It's reducing that expense lag and capital lag. It's addressing that issue and helping us, again, stabilize that financial health, reducing rate shock for customers. So a lot of good benefits there. And then finally is WISC-DISC, or infrastructure charges. So that's on the capital side more. Definitely a more common practice that's seen across the states and within our company and other companies in the industry to address the capital lag. And again, the other two best practices I've mentioned prior would also help address the capital needs that the same thing as the WISC-DISC does. But yeah, so those are three that we're specifically looking at to really target this regulatory lag and try to maintain our access to this capital. Thank you for your time.
We'd be happy to take any questions that the commissioners would have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? I've got just a couple. I know we're talking, of course, being on the water committee, I've heard a lot of aging infrastructure talk nationwide and about the cycle of trying to improve infrastructure. One of the things I've talked about that I think in everybody's plan for social media, for talking with consumers, is the value of water. We talk about that a lot of times. So are you looking at doing any kind of promotion about the value of water, since it is the one utility that we ingest, and I think there's differences in levels of understanding there?
Yes, we are. Actually, we are members of the NAWC, the National Association of Water Companies, and Shannon Becker, who's a colleague in North Carolina with Aqua, and I have been talking with leadership of NAWC in D.C. about reinitiating. There's been a lot of talk in the past, and they've done some campaigns in the past about the value of water, but we believe that campaign needs to be reinvigorated and it needs to go out again. And so we are having conversations as part of that industry association to do that, to help get some support. Again, they have a lot of this campaign material already done. It just needs to be updated, and that would save us the cost. Not necessarily always looking for a free ride, but it's nice when the industry association is kind of footing the bill. But you're absolutely right. This is we're in an annual rate case cycle, and I did not mention earlier, but I am managing both Blue Granite, Carolina Water Service of North Carolina, and our Tennessee Water Service Company. And we've got a rate case in Tennessee going on right now. We're filing one July 1 in North Carolina. We're anticipating filing in South Carolina in September. So it's the year of the rate cases, and that pace, unfortunately, isn't going to slow down. They're going to be anywhere from 12 to 18 months based on the numbers and the capital investments being made across those jurisdictions. So as we face that type of regulatory pace and rate pressure on customers, we have to do a better job communicating the value of the product that we're selling and why it's important that we make these investments. So we do bear that burden. We don't believe that customers should just intuit it.
Let me ask you one other thing too, just about infrastructure. As you know, been a lot of talk over the last several years with the Waters of the U.S. bill, and what EPA is doing, and there's been some talk about potentially nationwide some mandatory lead pipe replacement. Do you plan for that, or how does that affect your plans for the future?
So the lead pipe replacement, we're fortunate in the southeast that we really don't have much in the way of lead pipe infrastructure. Certainly not at the utility level. So what might be out there would be within the home, and there are, there's not much in the way of South Carolina housing stock that does have that lead piping. It's a very significant problem in the Midwest and the Northeast. But to a broader issue of emerging contaminants and other issues, we have to. There's no silver bullet, and we're going to have to really keep all the options on the table, and what may be cost effective in one jurisdiction may not in another, and so we can't take a one size fits all approach. Even within our company, which is obviously you love to try to leverage what you know and what you have done, your experience, but it isn't always transferable.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Howard, you have a question.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. I got a couple questions, and they're all over the place. It's scrambled like my brain, so just jump around. What percentage of your water company is groundwater versus surface water?
We don't have any surface water treatment in South Carolina.
All of it's groundwater?
Yes.
Then what can you do about secondary water issues? I know you were with DHEC, and it's obviously the biggest problem we have at a night hearing is the secondary water issues. And I know the DHEC, but what can be done about secondary water issues with advanced technology?
Well, I'll have to defer to Bryce on the advanced technology piece. I know that you've got some systems in North Carolina you manage.
Commissioner, exactly what secondary water quality issues are you having? Iron manganese?
Odor, color.
So it's not inexpensive, but it seems to be the most beneficial, is now membrane technology, from wastewater treatment to water treatment as well. It seems to have a better end result than anything. When we talk maybe, water hardness is a secondary water quality issue. If you've got high performing or high yield wells, then you're talking about a huge addition of salt. And ultimately the receiving waters for that, if it's a wastewater treatment plant, has a negative impact. So in other jurisdictions, we've looked at membrane technology. It's less salt. You have to deal with the backwash of it, but that seems to be the biggest piece of anything. We're dealing with, we don't have as much iron issues in a lot of places right now.
Now, with the Stonegate interconnection with the City of Columbia, the one system that we were challenged with secondary water quality issues has been fixed.
Well, that was my point. At what point in the distribution system do you place the membrane technology, the membrane?
Your customer satisfaction drives that a lot, Commissioner. It's, secondary is exactly what it's called. It is aesthetics.
Let me rephrase it.
Okay.
Are you talking about the homeowner doing it, or are you talking about you as a company doing it?
Company. I think it's easier for us. We have the operations staff to deal with a treatment facility as opposed to the average homeowner putting a softener or a filter system in their home. I think it's better to treat the source as a whole and deliver it as one common product rather than asking for each individual homeowner to do it.
Now, that said, we have a system in North Carolina that has hardness issues, which for some residents in very large subdivision near Topsail Beach, that's an issue, and for some doesn't bother them. And so we did look at a utility scale softening solution. It was very, very expensive when not all of the residents are complaining about the issue, and in working with the public staff directly, the ORS equivalent in North Carolina, recently, like in the last week, came to the collective determination that it would not be prudent to do a utility scale solution unless the HOA of that subdivision determined that they wanted to do it and do a surcharge on that system's bill for that solution until it was paid for. And so, but because they felt that it was more cost effective, and we agree, for the individual homeowners who have an issue with the hardness, they'd address it at that level. So that would be maybe an exception to that other standard.
Let me get a basic. When you're talking about the state of the company, you're talking about just South Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Utilities?
Yes, sir.
Just South Carolina?
Yes, sir. That's why I didn't introduce that earlier. I didn't want to create confusion. But sometimes that experience, though, it can be helpful to informing.
Well, with the recent promotion of the Sparrows, what does that do to y'all?
Well,
you
there will
understand
be.
The purpose of the question?
I think I do.
Trying to trick you.
Yeah. It puts more pressure on us to deliver for Miss Sparrow because, as you know, she has high expectations and she's now got the big job. So we'll continue to work to make her successful.
It's no doubt, and it's not the elephant in the room, but literally we've caught hell over your company in the last several years since I've been on. And you recognize that fact, and you're addressing it. What all are you doing to address it? I mean, just give us your day-to-day addressing the image of your company, particularly with the General Assembly and with your customers.
All right. So it starts by setting a vision internally and externally. I've been meeting with legislators on a regular basis. Meet with local elected officials in the areas where we serve to make sure that they feel that they have direct access to me and also that they are informed and that they get the information that they need. Mr. Carton is Director of External Affairs, and he is the kind of day-to-day boots on the ground with those interfaces to make sure that we are informing really everyone that we need to of issues that are going on in their communities with service or otherwise, and then what we're doing to respond to that. And, you know, in the last 16 months, we've adopted a mission, vision, and values. We've done a wholesale assessment of all of our systems and developed a capital plan. We've reorganized the company, realigned roles and responsibilities. We've implemented a new asset management system. We've hired new key talent. We've rebranded. We've instituted biannual customer workshops and community engagement. We've rolled out new technologies like My Utility Connect. We've effected a major interconnection that was several, water and sewer, with the City of Columbia that were required of us. We have doubled our capital budget to try to get ahead, to play catch up on the capital needs of the company, but also to get ahead of issues. So it is. Let me not understate this. The difficulty of selling to Ms. Sparrow and to our board why they should put more money in South Carolina when we have the lowest returns of any state in the portfolio. And my belief is, I'm from this state. I believe in this state. I believe in investing, and you have to prove why you deserve the benefit of the doubt with your regulators and with your customers. And that means doing these hard things and doing the right thing. We've also closed out most of the open consent orders that were with DHEC.
Well, let's see in a ton of chart. Are you allowed RE 10.5?
That's the allowed, yes.
Then, and that's the lowest in the region.
No, that's the allowed. I'm talking about. I'm sorry, earned. Our earned.
But then we can't do anything. We just
No.
allowed ROE. So
That's correct. What we're saying and what Mr. Hunter was highlighting is our ability to earn that. We never have the ability to earn our allowed return in a fully historic test year in this type of an regulatory paradigm. And so I am competing for capital internally with affiliates who are in jurisdictions like Florida who have future test year and alternative rate, 5-year rate plans and other type mechanisms. And so they're able to feather those cost increases in over time and earn closer to their allowed return. So it is, I believe, again, that you can't just hold your hand out and say, well, we need to recover this more timely. You have to prove why you deserve to have that capital both internally and externally, and why it matters, and that you're prudent with it, that you are working in the best interest of customers. So those are some things that we're looking at, because we're not going to change our status in the Utilities Inc. portfolio in terms of performance without some type of alternative rate making mechanism, because our capital investments aren't going to slow down. Now we're going to manage them. We can't do everything at once. You wouldn't want to for customer rates anyway, but it's going to be a steady pace for quite some time.
All right, well, before Mr. Hunter gave his three things, I had written them down because I knew the three he was going to say, because Chairman says we hear this at the Water Committee all the time.
Yes, sir.
The three things that you mentioned and that I had was future test year, multi-year rate cases, and infrastructure surcharge.
Correct.
Now, what does it take in South Carolina for you to implement those three things?
Legislative change.
Pardon?
Legislative change.
And that was why I asked the question, because you said you were having a good relationship with the General Assembly, or a better relationship, I'll put it that way.
We are working to explain our needs and what we're doing and why we're doing it. Yes, sir, because our goal is to be able to then take that conversation to the next level over the coming months, to put forth some options to discuss, because that's the prudent thing to do for our customers. It doesn't benefit our customers if we aren't earning anywhere near our allowed return, because that's not a long-term sustainable business, and that's not a future in that, and customers deserve better, and that means that they deserve, again, back to we're getting off the heels of our feet and onto the balls of our feet. Customers deserve that we are going to proactively manage this issue and work with our regulators and with our legislators to surgically address what needs to be addressed. We don't need to, go whole hog here, but, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. We want to make sure that we're fair, but it's not in customers' best interest that utilities struggle like we are.
When people talk about regulatory lag, it just sort of, I guess, we in South Carolina don't get credit for the 6-month time frame between applying for a rate case and having an order written. There are many states that are years. 9 months is probably average. A year is not unusual, and over a year is common in some states. But nobody ever says, well, South Carolina is good because you've got 6 months to get it. What is your concept when they say that? When you go to the capital market and they say, discuss me about regulatory lag, how do you address the 6 months versus the 9 months, a year, whatever the case may be?
It's absolutely a benefit as we compare to other jurisdictions. So there's no question that is really a very tight time frame, and so that is a benefit to the company. What it doesn't address is the fact that we still have to file that rate case in order to get that full-blown rate case. And let me give you a little bit of perspective on that. We'll put my consumer advocate hat back on from 1995 here. I worry about the cost to customers of these year-over-year rate cases. Just by way of example, our North Carolina affiliate had a rate case and had about 7% of the overall revenue requirement requested was just regulatory expense to prosecute the case. Compare that to Duke Progress Energy North Carolina rate case, and it was 0.3%. And so it's a disproportionate, prosecuting a full-blown rate case has a disproportionate impact on water and sewer customers than electric customers. And we are not afraid of the scrutiny. I mean, we're filing them anyway every 12 to 18 months. So an annual mechanism to have full audit reviews, maybe even similar to the Rate Stabilization Act for natural gas utilities. There is no concern. We're driving out all that O&M. That is immediately going to inure to the benefit of customers because we're filing these rate cases. So it's not like we're doing that so that we can ride that gravy train until years later when we file a rate case. It doesn't have that impact. It really does go right back to customers. And that's our effort to try to manage that rate impact of all the capital that you're seeing.
Going back to the three issues of, the multi-year, you had to prioritize those. How would you prioritize them to the General Assembly?
If I had to prioritize it, future test year. That said, I recognize that in South Carolina, there's some overhang from a Baseload Review Act, which was effectively paying for something that before it's complete, and that there may be some pushback to that. And so what we see as that would be our ideal, but what we see as perhaps an alternative that would be more in keeping with the historic test year concept, but allow us to minimize some of this cost for customers in the regulatory expense side, but also get more timely recovery would be that 5-year rate plan banded ROE.
I think I've taken my allocated time. My chairman is getting nervous, and I'm going to have to deal with him in another way. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to take this excessive amount of time.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Commissioner Hamilton.
I think Mr. Commissioner Howard asked all the questions, so I'd like to thank the panel for being here today. And I think it's pretty well evident that you changed more than the name of the company.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do also want to echo that we appreciate the proactive approach that you're taking. You're assembling an excellent team, and you're saying all the right things, and I know you intend to do the right things to make this vision statement come to life and go forward. So I'm impressed by what I've heard today, and I wish you all the best with your goals.
Thank you, Commissioner Irvin.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a few. I'm gonna whittle this down to just a couple here. And I, too, want to, like Commissioner Hamilton, Commissioner Irvin, thank you for presenting to us today and bringing us up to date on what Blue Granite Water Company is doing and the changes you've made and are implementing still. Quickly, Mr. Dupree, I know you're the engineer, and that's your background, and it looks like you got some, extensive background. That what you said you came from a municipal background. What municipality or where were you prior to?
I came from the city of North Myrtle Beach.
North Myrtle Beach, okay.
Yes,
and kind of to weave into an engineering / development question, and Ms. Heigl, I'm going to kind of maybe pull you into this. Either one of you or both can answer this. You mentioned when you were presenting, Ms. Heigl, about talking to REWA and about another bulk water supplier, I believe. And
Sewer.
Okay.
Sewer.
Okay, but didn't you mention another bulk water supplier in somewhere in the upstate?
I did not, but we do have. We have negotiated. We have a signed interconnection agreement with Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg, for water supply for York County. I don't want to talk much further about that because that will be coming to this commission for approval?
Well, more in a general nature, as is one of your overall concerns leading the company as water gets more scarce, if you will, with municipalities and privately held water companies. Do you have large concerns, if you will, going forward about supply, bulk water supply?
Yes. And I'm going to let Mr. Dupree talk about what we're addressing right now in York County.
Okay, so recently in York County, we have had an issue with supply and demand. Basically, a week and a half ago, supply met the demand. Obviously, when that occurs, then there is a chance for customers to suffer. In the past week and a half, we have worked with York County to improve that. We have determined there was a couple issues on their end, and it has tremendously helped us. Now, going back to your question about being generally concerned, I think everybody should be at some point, depending on your resources. You know, whether it's a well system or a bulk water system, it's subsurface or surface water, you should always be concerned, and we are. The York system is a perfect example of where you can have all the supply in the world, but if your demand peaks like it did a week and a half ago unexpectedly, it can be a tremendous detriment.
Yeah, so if I can add onto this, from 2014 to 2018, in the York system, the Lake Wiley system, we have seen 59% growth in demand, 59% growth in consumption. And that, it's a good news, bad news. Good news is that area is just growing gangbusters. The bad news is that the infrastructure has not kept pace back to the, on the heels of our feet and getting off of that and back onto the balls of our feet has not kept pace. As part of the York Franchise Agreement renewal that this commission approved a year ago, the water supply tower that had previously been a York asset was transferred back to Blue Granite, so July 1 last year. That tank is a 250,000-gallon tank.
It's a total of 250,000 gallons. It typically supplies about 200,000 gallons.
And you typically want to have supply for about half of your demand. So right now, without any conservation restrictions in place, our demand in that system would be about 2 million gallons a day. And so we should have storage, ideally, of 1 million gallons, and we don't. So we have done two things. One, this backup water supply from Charlotte-Mecklenburg that'll come from under the Buster Boy Bridge and tie into our system. And we've got the bids that scope out for bid right now. So that's increasing the supply. We're also siting for a new water tower, 1 million-gallon tank water tower. And that's just to meet the organic growth that we're seeing in the area. It's in the meantime, though, we have to promote the value of water. We have to promote good water practices. So we have right now a mandatory irrigation ban in place in that system. Travis has been getting 4 hours sleep a night, poring over the data and seeing the drawdown rates from that tower, seeing what hours the booster pumps from York County are operating, analyzing that data, trying to understand what additional non-essential use for water can we permit at this point in time. So our hope is to move to a conservation protocol that would be indefinite. Even though we've got these solutions in the works, and then we'll have that additional 1 million gallon a day water supply from Charlotte in the next couple months, and we'll have that tank done in a year and a half. But the question is, what behaviors do we want to incentivize? Obviously, again, back to long-term versus short-term thinking. Short-term thinking is, well, you're a water company, you're in the business to sell water. Yes, but when people turn the tap on and nothing comes out, they're not happy. And we did have that a week and a half ago. So that's not something that is that's not a future we want. So we have drafted a conservation protocol that would allow for, on a permanent fixed basis, people to better understand the value of water for non-essential uses in particular. It drives conservation behavior, and it will allow us to be better stewards of these resources that are finite for these, especially these growing areas, and that Metro Charlotte area is definitely one of the fastest growing.
Well,
We've been at this a while. We got, are you about?
I was just going to say thank you for sharing. It's the heaviest populated area in my district, and I certainly appreciate you sharing this and addressing this through this forum.
Great, thank you. I just lost track of time. I was interested in. We've been at it a while, so we were going to either have to take a break and come back or wrap this up. So, looking up at. We want to thank you for being here today, and thank everyone for being here. And if there's nothing else to come before us, we are adjourned.